My view is it's probably going to be dead, but I've been wrong. I thought I'd be president of the United States.
So the White House is not ready to declare the health care bill dead just yet, but is prepared to move on if the Senate cannot pass a replacement bill.
If anyone can get it done, Mitch McConnell, President Trump, working together with the Senate.
Yes or no? Will they pass?
Yes.
Yes. What?
Yes. They will get a repeal and replace bill done. I believe that.
Before the August recess.
Maybe before, maybe a little bit into it, but I know that this president expects them to get this thing done. Whether it be before August recess or during August recess, the president expects the Senate to fulfill the promises it made to the American people.
I think we'd like to get health care done. If we don't get this passed, then the president, as he said, will go to the next plan.
All right, joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Robert Pittenger. He is a Republican representative from North Carolina. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks for being with me.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So the House managed to pass a health care bill. You supported it, but do you think the U.S. Senate will do the same, or is this bill dead?
Absolutely. I believe they'll pass this bill. You know, Mark Twain once said, rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated. I think to believe that this bill is dead in the Senate is incorrect. I think Mitch McConnell, who's an expert in managing these types of bills and working with his group in the Senate, he understands their needs as much like Paul Ryan did. You know, Paul Ryan had 240 members to hurdle in together, and Mitch McConnell's got 50 or so, and I think he can get it done.
But you heard Senator McCain, who didn't sound very optimistic. You know, if the latest plan does fail, what about that big message, you know, that all that talk about repeal for 7 years and now come to find out, you know, there really wasn't a plan. That promise is hollow, fairly empty. You know, Republicans in the majority in the White House and on the Hill, how concerned are you about the backlash after all that energy and resources?
All the above is true, but I believe we'll get it done. I think it's absolutely required of us to do it. Look where the market is today. I mean, let's take a true and accurate assessment. When you consider that people in the individual market really don't even have coverage. If you have a deductible that's $5,000 to $10,000 and you're paying $1,000 to $3,000 a month for health insurance and a premium, that's not coverage. When you look at United and Aetna and Humana and all these major providers that are leaving the market.
Right, but the bottom line is, where's the plan that is going to save all of that, secure it, offer something better for people?
Yes, ma'am. Well, we got it done in the House. It wasn't easy to do. It took us a couple months to work through the different interests and needs. You know, when you sit around the table, those of us as Republicans, we have districts that are far different. Many of them are urban or they're rural. We have districts that have greater numbers of seniors or more poverty. So they're distinctive. And the needs are different. So we had to come to consensus. And that's where we were, that's where the Senate will be. We need to learn how to govern by consensus.
Oh, okay. Well, consensus. You know, the conservative group Heritage Foundation says McConnell is making a big mistake if the senator works with Democrats to stabilize the law's exchanges. The Heritage Foundation, CEO Mike Needham says it would be, quoting now, catastrophic for the party. So you're using the word consensus.
I'm talking about even consensus. I'm talking about consensus even among the Republican Party. You know, it took us 2 months to work through the various factions inside the House.
Do you believe it's detrimental for Democrats and Republicans to work together as it pertains to McConnell's plan?
No, I think if McConnell can come up with a plan, you know, frankly, Chuck Schumer has not been interested whatsoever. He said, we are not going to work with you. So that really hasn't been
Well, he
an
said
option.
not on repealing, but on fixing, yes. And so that is the notion. That's what the Heritage Foundation is saying. If there is a fix on the exchanges, that would be detrimental to the plan.
Medicine.
So you're not in agreement with what the Heritage Foundation is saying?
Oh, I am in agreement. I don't think we want mandated health care. We don't want socialism. And that's part and parcel of what Chuck Schumer wants to replace it with. What is distinctive about the health care plans offered by Republicans, it puts choices back in the hands of the American people. It relegates and mandates the states to assume these responsibilities and the oversight. It's like Medicaid. There's essentially no oversight of Medicaid. We've seen an exponential growth in Medicaid, and frankly, I've worked on this issue for 15 years. And there's so much that's done in Medicaid to exploit the process. In North Carolina, we have 60,000 providers, and many of those providers have learned how to exploit the system. We don't have haven't been using the capabilities that are there in software to identify those who are exploiting the system, or to look at those who really should be able to get Medicaid and our food stamps that have grown exponentially. When the federal government is funding all the money and the states are doing the allocation, there's no oversight. That's why when we move it back to the states, there's going to be accountability. That's what the American people want.
Yeah, so then you said working with this for 15 years, you realize then, and you know better than anybody else that this is just not a simple undertaking. Meantime, I want to get your reaction to the tweets that have come from the president this morning following the meeting with President Putin at the G20. The president saying he is ready to move forward with Russia. And here is what Senator Lindsey Graham had to say, John McCain all had to say this morning about this notion of moving on, yet without any kind of penalty toward Putin or Russia for interfering with democracy in the U.S. Listen.
Tillerson and Trump are ready to forgive and forget when it comes to cyber attacks on the American election of 2016. Nobody's saying, Mr. President, the Russians changed the outcome. You won fair and square, but they did try to attack our election system. They were successful in many ways, and the more you do this, the more people are suspicious about you and Russia. And to forgive and forget when it comes to Putin regarding cyber attacks is to empower Putin, and that's exactly what he's doing.
There's been no penalty whatsoever. Time to move forward. Yes, it's time to move forward, but there has to be a price to pay.
Why not?
And
Why does there have to be a price?
otherwise, he will be encouraged to do so again, obviously.
And how do you see it, Congressman?
Well, I don't think the president ever shows all his cards. You know, the president's been underestimated for decades. When he left Queens to go to Manhattan, nobody thought he'd ever succeed. He wanted to get in the TV business. Well, people thought he was crazy. He had the #1 show. Then he said, hey, I'm going to run for president. People
is it showing the cards? You're saying, is it showing the cards to say, as the president, I told Russian President Putin to stop doing this? That's showing the cards?
No, I think what he's doing right now is he has his own piece of this puzzle he's putting together. We don't see all the pieces of the puzzle. He doesn't show his hand.
Do you hope that the president did that? Reprimanded Russia, or at least, threatened that there would be some consequence as a result?
I don't think President Trump needs a tutorial about Vladimir Putin and where he's come from with the KGB, what he's done in terms of squelching the human rights, liberties, the freedom of the press, the numbers of people who have amazingly disappeared.
But we're talking about the U.S. elections. Do you believe that the president, it's appropriate or it's enough that the president has tweeted about it today? There was no press conference following the G20. There was no real clarity, and has not been real clarity coming from the president about what he said to Putin, besides just bringing up the topic.
Sure, I understand that. You have to look at context. We have major issues out there that we need to be working with Russia on. Russia has 20 million Muslims inside their own country. They had 2,000 fighters that went to fight in Syria and in Afghanistan on behalf of ISIS.
So you like the way the president has handled his take on his meeting with Putin via tweet this morning and what was said?
If I could respectfully say to you, there are large issues on the world stage today with North Korea, with Iran, in Syria, ISIS. There are major issues. There seems to be a predominance by the media to just focus on Russia and our elections. Yes, that is a factor. The president has acknowledged that, but he's saying, I'm not going to stop there. There are other major issues that I need to be able to work with Russia and President Putin on to address the major concerns and the challenges and the threats we have in this world today. And that's what he's engaged in.
So you feel like it's pretty clear, the acknowledgement that the president has made about the U.S. elections being meddled by Russia. You say it's very clear. And what is that message in your view?
In my view, I think he acknowledges that they have been there. I think he's made the case. He said, hey, also other countries have done the same thing. There seems to be a predominance of interest in Russia right now. But you can look at other countries who have used their cyber capabilities at the detriment of our own country. So I think we need to have a broader view of what the issues and concerns are in our world. And he is trying to embrace Putin as best he can. He said, you know, it may not work, but he's trying to do it because the threat that we have in the world today from North Korea, from Iran, in the situation in Syria, ISIS, these are all areas that we need to be engaged in. And his way of saying we need to move on is, hey, I understand this. I've addressed it with him a couple of times when he had the meeting. The media didn't think he'd ever even bring it up. Well, he did bring it up, and he brought it up several times. But he's saying there's other issues I need to work with this man on. We have other challenges in the world, and I think that's what he's trying to communicate.
So you agree with the words, it's time to move on?
Well, take it in context. You can read that any way you want. Moving on means to me there's other important matters that I need to be able to talk to President Putin about to see if we can find some measure in some way to work together.
All right, North Carolina Representative Robert Pittenger, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too. We'll be right back.